It's wintertime, it's cold outside, I still got snow on the ground. Perfect time to start getting our gardens ready for spring. The key to getting your garden ready for spring is knowing when to start. Right now my roses are dormant. I got a few old leaves, but those will come off. But by and large, they're dormant. I see a little bit of bud swelling going on. I live in the upstate of South Carolina. I have forsythia. That's that beautiful bush with the yellow flowers that you see. When that blooms, I know it's time for me to begin my spring preparation. Now, if you don't have forsythia that blooms in your part of the world, you can go to Google, plug in your zip code, last frost date, and whatever your zip code is, last frost date, whatever your zip code is, it'll tell you when that is. Count back 6 weeks. So for me, my last frost date's about April 15th. So I know right around end of February, early March is when I want to do my spring prep. Now, if you don't have a true dormant season, best time to do January is when I would go ahead and hit this. So that's knowing when to start. That's the first key. Now we're going to start talking about the dirt on dirt. The very first thing I'm going to do is check my soil. That's the most important thing that you can ever do. We actually have a video on building a living soil profile that you can check out to get some more detail. But basically, I'm looking to a couple things. First is going to be to check my pH. I live in an area with naturally acidic soil. Roses like neutral soil, 6.5, 7.0, somewhere in there. When we get a lot of rain or a wet winter, which we just had, my soil can go down into low 5s. I use a very simple soil meter. That's basically what it is. Basically just stick that in the soil like that, and you just sort of see where it registers. That's in the low 6s. I'm good with that. I may add a little bit of lime to get it to like 6.5, but I am going to keep an eye on it. I'm going to check other areas of my gardens. I'm going to do like 7 or 8 pH tests to see how I'm doing. Next thing you want to think about, soil test. I know it sounds simple, but boy, is that a roadmap for what's going on underneath the ground, which is so important. I prefer you get one from a professional source. Check your local agricultural extension office, local university with a good horticultural program. It's maybe $30, money well spent. So soil is the very first thing you want to look at, and you can even start that well before your other chores. When it is actually time to begin those chores, in my case again, when the forsythia blooms are 6 weeks before your last frost date, first thing I want to do is prune and cut back. I'm going to prune all my roses accordingly. You know, climbers I'll prune one way, shrubs I'll prune a different way. I'm also then going to cut my perennials back. I don't do my perennials in fall because the new school of thought is that you want to wait till you see new growth emerging in the spring. Like this gower over here is completely dormant right now, so I don't want to cut that back. Because I also know that in that rough foliage, there's a bunch of beneficial insects living in there. If I cut that back in the fall, chuck it out, I've thrown out a whole apartment complex of basically beneficial insects overwintering. So your number one chore is going to be, after your soil test, of course, and all your soil work, prune the roses, cut back the perennials. Next thing you're going to want to do is go through the garden and give it a good cleaning. You know, old sticks that have fallen, old rose leaves, kind of get them out, any other stuff from the perennials you've cut back. The exception that I make, however, are old leaves like this that have fallen from my local hardwood trees. I like leaving those because they're going to break down underneath the mulch that we're about to put down. We'll talk about that in just a minute. They really make a really nice compost and help keep that whole forest floor thing going on that you've probably heard me talk about in the past. There is one exception, however, where I will move leaves from, and that's over here on some of these perennials like this right here. I will go ahead and clean them out because I want to make sure that they've got room for their new growth to come up and they basically won't be suppressed. That's the basic thing on that. So once you've done that and you've got all that stuff out of there, then what it's time to do is to mulch. But before you mulch, you want to make sure that you put down anything you need to put down. If you need to raise your pH like I need to do, I add some lime, I add alfalfa pellets a lot. Anything like that that you want to do to condition that soil, this is the time to do it. So go ahead and put that down, and then you put down your good layer of good mulch, whatever mulch you normally use, 2 or 3 inches of good mulch, and that's that part of the garden done. The last thing I want to talk about is when it's time to start fertilizing. That's a question I get asked a lot. When do I start fertilizing in spring? Well, here's the key. We're going to let the roses tell us when it's time to fertilize. When is that? When you see the first true set of leaves appear. Take a look at that right there. This is what I mean by a true set of leaves right here. Okay, you can see right there that they look like actual leaves, unlike this where there's basically swelling. Okay, that's not a true set of leaves. That's a true set of leaves. Don't confuse them with old leaves, okay? True set of purple leaves. In fact, I've even got an aphid already. How about that? So when you see that first true set of leaves, that's nature's way of telling you it's time to start feeding your roses. Whatever normal feeding program you use, if you spray your roses, that's the time to begin that as well. And that's basically it. You're done. All your spring chores. You checked your soil, you've cut your roses back, you cut your perennials back, you cleaned out debris, you've put down some mulch, including whatever you needed before the mulch to adjust your soil. You've started your feeding program and the first 2 sets of leaves appear. Now you're getting ready for spring. You've set your garden up for that success and that roaring spring flowering that we all love to see so much. So I hope this has helped and answered some questions. And on behalf of all of our brands here, this is Paul Zimmerman, and thanks for spending time in the garden with us.